It is you that holds us together when everything else fails us. It is you that holds us together. Take a seat.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Rich and I have our announcements this morning. What do we got, Eric? Eric, we have, everyone else, we have a prayer meeting. It is usually the first...
I did not make that meeting today.
Yeah, it's
Okay, never mind.
It's all good. You totally updated it. You updated empathy for future self, past self. You updated it, Greg. You're on it. Great. So prayer meeting today. What else we got? Eric. Y'all showed up in terms of like giving, in terms of covering from the flood and all the equipment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So these chairs, wow, like fantastic. Love that we have them. You notice the faulty chairs are in the back, encouraging us to sit in the front, y'all. So great chairs in the front. Love it. Also, very excited. Greg is especially excited. We have a new soundboard. We're testing that out. We had training on 2 weeks. Hey, it's not the soundboard's time yet. We thought maybe it was the soundboard's time. All in good time. Soundboard is coming in a few weeks. Really excited about that. So thank you. Life groups, right? New year, new you. That's like an old thing. Don't do that anymore. But like, hey, maybe try the new life group, right? Maybe that's for you. Plug for the board game life group. We meet the third Sunday of every month from 1 to 3 at varying places, renting folks' houses. So really excited about that. So we're meeting next week, y'all. If anyone wants to join, sign up on the code. There's a bunch of other things here. Fuzzy over here, she told me to like emphasize that the hiking group is the longest standing one. Yada yada yada. Great. It's great. It's not a great group. All right, but think about that in terms of ways to engage with this community. Mariana is doing a Imagine Community, great like chance to break bread together and talk about what community means, right? And you see the date there when the next one is coming up. Meet and greet. If you're new or feeling new, 26 is for you. Come by, ask questions, talk, meet other folks. There you go. Becca is doing something fantastic in this space. The date is February 1st. It's the Lunar New Year gathering, right? So there's gonna be fashion show, food, drinks, art show. Come by. You know, it seems like it's gonna be a really fantastic thing to be at, and you know where it is. Where you have no excuse about not knowing where it is. It's gonna be great. Always need volunteers. Coffee and kids seem to be the most need. So if you're feeling like being of service, want to add that to your list in 2025, you can sign up either talk to Greg or email Greg. Let's say you sign up for that. Okay, we are starting a new care team in this year, and this is an opportunity for a team to respond to the needs of the community, right? So if it's about like someone who lost a job and needs help connecting and finding a new job, if it's about needing money for bus or food. This is about having a more consistent way to address the needs that come up, rather than ad hoc, right? So there's a team that is responsible. It's not just falling on one person's shoulders. And so if you're interested in being part of this, perhaps if you're just like curious, want to get involved, want to contribute, feel like perhaps like you know a lot of people, have a strong network, and have means for other folks to get what they need, please like sign up in the weekly email. This is coming out in the newsletter, as is a lot of things that I'm talking about. Okay. If you consider Oak Life to be your church home, think about giving, and you can do that through the QR code or through the link listed below. Okay, any announcements of the community? We're still in like good time sound setup, so I think this is the only live mic, so I can repeat back either what y'all offer or if you want to jump up here and go for announcement. Either way is great. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jude. I'm leading our climbing meetup today. If folks are interested, it's 3 to 6 p.m. at Pacific Pipe Gym in West Oakland. It's with Filipino Up, which is a Filipino affinity group open to folks that identify as Filipino and allies. So consider this church to be allies with me. So please consider coming out and find me if you want more information or questions about it. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Annalisa. I'm helping a friend raise funds for those affected by the LA fires. So if you are potentially interested in giving, you can find me after service. We're just collecting money so that way we can buy brand new, like toiletries, items that might be needed, and then dropping them off at various donation centers. So yeah, find me after. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks, y'all. So I think now we're going to go into chair chat. So you're going to turn and gather with folks around you. Great questions on the screen. The first one is share your name and a song that you like. Song that you like. All right, ready, set, go. Gather those around you, chair chats. On mark, set, go. This is your 1 minute warning, 1 minute warning.
I'll walk you through my first couple slides. I have a.
You caught me pondering,
nature
can
of
I go
existence.
to visit nature today?
Ooh, you should.
Where?
The answer is yes.
I know. And where and how far does it take to get to something really interesting?
Gosh, so I'll cue it, but there's a video.
Okay.
As long as talking about worship,
Okay.
and it's
So
it'll be like it'll be this one, and you'll have to double click it. It's pretty funny.
I saw something that said, I don't know where Mike is, like church fails or something like that.
Yeah.
Did I already pass it?
Yeah, it was up above.
Oh, okay. Is it this one?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any big reveals that I should not?
No.
Should I be careful to not advance
No, you're
too
good.
quickly? All right. Awesome. Cool.
All right, go ahead and start winding down your chair chats. Get situated, we're gonna start in just a sec.
There are still comfy chairs in the front row. If you're looking for a seat. And as folks get started here, I'll just greet everybody online who's been chatting. Oh, we got some good chats today. Morning, Russell and Lori, Yukita, Leah, Victor. Anybody else I missed or watching later, hope you're well. Thanks for joining us online. Keep the chats going. Let us know how you're doing. Okay. Anybody share a song that's like the first one that came to mind, the song you like right now? You don't want to shout it out.
Feel gooding.
Feel gooding. Okay. Anybody else? Songs.
Friends in low places.
Friends in low places. Which one? I'm not okay.
Promise.
Promise. That worked out well. I think. Anybody else want to share a song? Dancing through life. Cool. Yeah, I'm curious the crowd reactions, like the songs that people know and don't know. I also want to be in the loop and stay hip, so if there's like a cool young person song, let me know. Well, welcome. Before we get started, we're talking about the series we're in is called Reclaiming Church, and we're exploring the gift of sacred community and how profoundly special it is to be able to gather together and do life together, to center on love and to be in relationship with one another. I always think about the time of the pandemic when we couldn't be in person and how much of a gift it is that we get to do this. It is a really special thing. And so a lot of us have come from backgrounds where there's been pain with church or misuse of power, or we've been excluded for various reasons, or we've seen corruption or hypocrisy. And we've kind of found our way back to community maybe, and Oak Life is kind of trying to reclaim the good that's there, even though there's a lot of negative stuff too. That we don't want to throw it all out. There's something beautiful here we want to redeem and reclaim. Before we get into today's topic, we're talking about worship, reclaiming worship. I do just want to, was Annalisa, were you the one who had the fire connection? This name that's going on in this time, that we can hold that with us. I went to seminary in Pasadena and have lots of friends. I have 2 friends who lost their homes this week, people I knew. Not super close, but I went to church with them. And so that's really happening. And as we as a community consider how we walk out our faith, if there's ways that you know that would be good for us to help, like you know a great connection, feel free to talk about that. And certainly we should be praying for all those affected. So as we consider that and consider what it means to be in community together, we're talking about worship. And I want to gauge kind of the feel of the room. When you hear that question, what emotion, what response comes up in your body, even when you hear the word worship? Anybody have like a negative, like, ugh, or like something that's like, it does something, it's not super comfortable? Anybody have that when you hear the word worship? A couple of us. Anybody have like, oh, it feels like really good, I'm excited to have this conversation? Good chunk of us. Anybody just kind of indifferent, kind of in the middle, I don't really have strong feelings, okay. Kind of a range there. Well, worship, many of us, at least when I first ask that question, what comes to mind, I picture images like this. I picture American, you can always follow along in Sunday text. I picture the American expression of worship, which is flashy. It's very American. If you compare our worship expression to like other religions, other forms of Christianity around the world, it's like, oh, that's definitely a reflection of our culture. There's laser lights and fog machines. I worked at a church once that the production budget, which included lights, AV stuff, was bigger than the youth budget. And I was like, what are we doing here? Something feels off, but I didn't get to decide, so it wasn't my place. A lot of us think of that, but it's a bigger concept. I think anthropologically, my undergrad was in cultural anthropology, and if you just get into like who we are, the study of people, there seems to be a pattern of we as humans want to worship, want to orient our life around something. We're drawn to something bigger than ourselves, that we have a sense intuitively we need to think through and express emotions and gratitude towards. And so today we're going to explore some of that. And I'll say as a disclaimer up front, I like worship. I think I experience and feel worship regularly. I'll talk about what I think, for me, how I define it. But as I was writing this talk, I struggled with like the words to choose to talk about something that's like a very spiritual practice. So just saying it up front, if this isn't my best talk, it's because if talking about something bigger, I don't know, I couldn't do good talking about worship. I couldn't find gooder words. But I think there's something to that because just listening to that, like, yeah, that's part of this experience. We're talking about connecting to the transcendent, to something beyond logic, to something beyond our sense of even what reality is, something bigger. So that's my disclaimer. And I thought as we're talking about it, we could have fun. I think it's okay to make fun of your own. And so as Christians, there's a lot of things we need to make fun of our own as a way to correct and learn, or just to celebrate. Like, we take ourselves too seriously sometimes. And I think in this conversation, there can be some playfulness. So the most fun part of writing my talk this week was remembering this thread on social media and on YouTube called Worship Fails. Has anybody ever got into like videos of just worship fails? You guys? So I thought we could start, and this is what it means, is just like worship. And what I mean by worship is how we in the West American understood it, like the music that happens on Sunday morning service. And just some silliness and absurdity that happens. So please enjoy this video for a couple minutes of Worship Fails. My favorite is just so enjoyable. Somebody who's like been, I've had some of those experiences, and like, what do you do in that moment? I thoroughly enjoy how everyone like doesn't know what to do, and they all kind of take themselves seriously and try to keep going. I mean, we just pause, and it's okay. Like, that's a part of our humanity that things break and fall down. So, some images of worship. As we get going, just a few things to start with. I do think that worship, or different words for that, is some sort of fundamental human need or longing or behavior. What we orient around our lives around matters. And for us in this tradition, we're thinking about orienting our lives around God, and that's part of what worship is. I think worship is actually something we need more of in our world, just around things that deserve to be worshiped more. Healing, transformation, love, namely God. A lot of us have been given images of worship and been exposed to kind of a culture of worship that I think has misled us. We've been taught that worship is about warm, fuzzy feelings and an experience that is often sensory, with lights and booming music that kind of triggers the physiology in our body around music, which is beautiful, but often includes really good-looking people up front playing guitar and singing. But in reality, I think worship is much more subversive and often hidden, and is an incredibly powerful thing that isn't always in the spotlight, but is most common in places where the spotlight never shines. Because true worship, in my opinion, can't be monetized, though people try. Not to throw shade at any one person, but you can go see Stephen Furtick's worship band for $1,000. It's probably awesome. Just kidding, we'll do this next time. There is a weird culture of the worship industry and the purchasing of that experience, which feels incongruent to the way of Jesus. So a couple questions as we get started, just to kind of stir the pot. Do you know that Jesus never asked us to worship him? He said, follow me. He never said, worship me. Interesting. And second question, just to stir the pot, just to get you thinking, is how do you think Jesus worshipped? Like, was he like this? Or was he like the frozen chosen, kind of sitting? He danced? Okay, maybe he was dancing. Like, so just thinking about if Jesus is our ideal human, love embodied, and we want to consider what worship in the most loving way, most honest human way looks. I think we consider how would Jesus worship? So I'm not going to answer those questions, just things to think about. And so here's my hypothesis for this morning regarding worship, and then we're going to get into a few passages from Scripture. I wonder if part of the reason we are such an anxious, fearful, and depressed culture is because we've lost touch with the human experience of worship. We're stuck in a cycle of fear and scarcity, and often cheap substitutes for real worship. For this reason, I invite you to reclaim worship as an essential thing in your life. So we'll get into two passages this morning. We'll take a moment to process them. The first one is kind of doozy. We're going to read from Amos 5. Amos, just to give you the context here, spoke as one of the prophets at a time when Israel, his community, his culture and nation seemed to be flourishing. The economy was prospering, at least for some. The king maintained law and order, however, it skewed heavily towards the rich and powerful. Worship attendance at the king's houses of worship was high. Lots of people going to their former church. The prophet, however, spoke very critically of these worship experiences and shattered the veneer of prosperity and religiosity. So we're going to read Amos 5, we're going to read 7 through 15, and then skip to 21 through 24, where the true mic drop moment happens. You guys ready? Buckle up. Amos speaking about the injustice connected to worship in his time. There are those who turn justice into bitterness and cast righteousness to the ground. He who made the Pleiades and Orion, who turns midnight into dawn and darkness, darkens day into night, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out over the face of the land. The Lord is his name. With a blinding flash, he destroys the stronghold and brings the fortified city to ruin. There are those who hate the one who upholds justice in court and detest the one who tells the truth. You levy a straw tax on the poor and impose tax on their grain. Therefore, though you have built stone mansions, you will not live in them. Though you have planted lush vineyards, you will not drink their wine. For I know how many are your offenses and how great your sins. There are those who oppress the innocent and take bribes and deprive the poor of justice in their courts. Therefore, the prudent keep quiet in such times, for the times are evil. Seek good, not evil, that you may live. Then the Lord God Almighty will be with you just as you say he is. Hate evil, love good, maintain justice in the courts. Perhaps the Lord Almighty will have mercy on the remnant of Joseph. And skipping to verse 21, He kind of says some similar things in those in between verses. Verse 21. I hate, this is speaking from the voice of God to those largely in power in his time. I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps, but let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-ending stream. Pretty harsh words, right? Take a moment to listen to that passage and look to just kind of process it in community. Maybe we'll do a word or an emotion that this is bringing up, and if you have a short, further thought, we'd love to hear from you how this is speaking, an impression or something is stirring in you. And I'll try to repeat back for those online into the mic before we get, I think in a couple weeks we'll have a wireless back. Any impressions from Amos 5 regarding worship?
I just heard Martin Luther King Jr.'s.
This person's hearing Dr. King's speech, yeah.
So, like, the focusing so much on the look of it and the aesthetic footage, like the sound, how that often be rather than just art.
It's focusing on something deeper than just the look of it, what's flowing out from your heart, not just the aesthetic of worship. Anyone else? Many people have read this passage. Many people, this is kind of a new passage. Anybody? It's like, yeah. I'll give one more moment. Any last comments or feelings, kind of responses to this? Yeah.
I was just gonna say with like the SWAT tax and like references to taking advantage of for the court system, if we can do those things as like political and separate from like a religious or worship sphere. That's like I was actually really concerned with those like day-to-day inequities because they like really impact people. And I don't know, I feel like I walk away like feeling inspired by that last time.
This comment was we sometimes think about like taxes on the poor, things that are unjust as like separate in the political sphere compared to the church worship sphere, and God sees it differently, and this person was inspired by this, especially the last line. All right, take a deep breath. It does seem Amos is connecting our worship to how we do politics, the systems we create in the world, and if we have loud worship music and the best worship services, but people are suffering and there's injustice, there's hypocrisy there. That's a part of worship too. I do want to say that there's the line in here that like, I hate your songs, and we can go too far to the extreme that worship is only in the realm of justice and service in the world. I do think that there's also, on the other end of the spectrum, a balance, that music is a part of worship. It's when those things get out of balance that I think is a risk. So for instance, in Luke 19, when Jesus is coming into Jerusalem, it's called the triumphal entry. People are so excited that he's there. There's an anticipation that maybe he's this Messiah, though they don't really know exactly who he is. They might be looking for a political leader, and he's doing something different. But as he's coming in, people say this. This is Luke 19, verse 38. People line the streets, and they start saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Some accounts use the word Hosanna. This is a psalm. This is Psalm 118. People were singing as Jesus was coming in, an expression of excitement, gratitude, praise. And the Pharisees told Jesus, like, "Teacher, tell these people to be quiet." And he says, "I tell you, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out." It's a really beautiful passage on like, there's something good and beautiful too that Jesus affirms of singing praise. So it's not that praises is bad. It's that when there's hypocrisy with the gratitude in our hearts we're giving to God and how we are not loving our neighbors or how we are. So just things to consider as we hold worship. Interestingly enough, as I was doing research this week, I learned that there aren't really any words from Hebrew or Greek that are good translations to the word we use in American Christianity called worship. So what I'm going to do is define worship and try to, at least how I define it at this point in my life. I might change it tomorrow, I don't know. But to try to define the working definition of what worship is, and then some reasons we need to reclaim it, because I do think it's powerful and important, but often misunderstood or misused. So worship defined. First, our word from worship comes from an Old English word called weord spice, meaning worthiness or meritus, and thus giving God recognition that God deserves. There are some problems with this translation because in either Greek or Hebrew is there a perfect parallel. In Hebrew, there are words like the word psalms, which we translate from Hebrew, which just mean like a song of praise, but it doesn't translate to like we call church worship. In Greek, there's other words like proskuneo, referring to bowing down and kissing the feet of another person. And if you look at the different words that get translated in English as praise or worship, there's lots of different contexts they come from. Some of them mean, bowing down in honor to a king, that's a form of worship. Some of them mean like, oh, it's just a song. Some of them mean giving honor to. And so a lot of them aren't referring to people coming together to sing songs. There's something bigger going on. So from the jump, there are many ways biblically to understand what worship is. And as we were talking about this with our speaking team, actually last week, a couple people made comments. One person said, worship is reverence and awe and letting it be what it is. It's when you look at a sunset, looking at a half dome, and you're silenced and you're brought to a place of worship. One person said that worship is a posture of your heart that also connects to action in the world, like some sort of outward expression of it. One quote that I came across this week, which I thought was interesting, was Walter Wink, who's prolific in conversations around an anti-military industrial complex within Christianity. But he says, worship is to remember who owns the house. And here's my working definition for now, as I'm experiencing worship. And again, these words, even as of like this morning, I was changing them. Worship, as I understand it, an inner orientation of one's being, which includes your mind, soul, and body, like the inner part of all those things, of awe, wonder, gratitude, and respect. Maybe healthy fear towards God that can't help but be expressed outwardly. So an inner awareness or posture of gratitude, respect, and wonder towards God, our Creator, that can't help but be expressed outwardly. And that's why we sing. That's why we write music. That's why we do poetry. That's why we say thank you. So we offer prayers. In different traditions, offer burnt offerings. We say thank you. Or we move that into loving our neighbor as a form of worship. I use the word healthy fear, maybe healthy fear with a question mark, because I was playing with this idea. We've all heard that we should like fear God, or have you heard people say that? I don't know if I believe that anymore. Because do you love something that you fear? There's part of me that feels like those are different things. And the Bible even says that perfect love casts out fear. And I guess it depends on how you hold fear, but I think God wants us to love God primarily. And respect for God's awesomeness and bigness, for sure, can be part of love, but I don't know if it's healthy for us to fear God in a way that like we're scared that he's gonna hurt us or punish us, or we're scared that he's gonna shame us. I don't know if that's, and for me, the way I wanna worship God. But respect God the way I respect the ocean. Like, holy crap, the ocean's amazing. It's powerful, and it could hurt me, and it's beautiful. That kind of respect, awe, healthy fear, maybe is a better word. So, worship is kind of like these things, and it's an aligning of our reality with God and God's goodness and love that brings you to gratitude, awe, wonder, and moves you to praise in word or deed. Sometimes music can bring us to worship, can bring us to that awareness. Sometimes silence can bring us to that awareness of God. Sometimes it's those random moments of transcendence where you eat a bite of dinner and you're like, that's good and beautiful, and you like connect to something. Sometimes it's beautiful nature. It's often for me nature. Sometimes it's talking to a friend where I become aware of like the goodness of reality. Sometimes it's in service to others, or a moment of healing, or a moment of somebody working through something where I'm just grateful and I feel a sense of worship. And when we bring those things together and hold them in community, that's our collective worship. Bring all of those things that we're experiencing, some inner reminders of God's goodness or the sacredness of life, and come together and offer things for our breath and to be alive. So our question here for you is, how would you define worship in your own words? How would you put it? So why do we need to reclaim it? Why should we reclaim worship? I have 4 thoughts here. I think we should reclaim worship because worship is a force for good that has more power than we can imagine. Worship at its best, this idea of connecting to the sacredness of life and to the gifts of God, it moves us from cynicism and scarcity to gratitude and abundance. It invites us to see the world through wonder, mercy, grace, and love, to say thanks for this breath. Worship invites us to see that the cup of our life isn't just half full or half empty, but it's actually overflowing all the time. The fact that we get to live and breathe, even the hard moments. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think worship has power to change us and to change our world. Have you ever read the studies on the science of gratitude? Have you ever gotten into that? If gratitude is like a part of worship, saying thanks to God, when we orient ourselves around that, it changes us. There's a lot of people who start their year with like gratitude journals, trying to orient around like things that are good, but it's real. Studies have found that practicing gratitude can have a positive impact on our mental, physical, and spiritual health, reducing stress, improving mood, sleeping better. Anybody struggle with sleep? Improve relationships. When we focus on what we have to be grateful for with those in our lives, we start to see it differently. We start to see all that there is good and beautiful, instead of seeing the deficit. Our world wants to get us to focus on all that's bad and the deficit, the negative, the things to fix, the things that have gone wrong, so they can sell us answers consistently. But when we focus on gratitude and the good there is, we start to flow differently. It regulates our nervous system, so we're not in a place of reactivity and defensiveness. People who practice gratitude regularly report greater satisfaction, and gratitude towards God is an even deeper part of that. I think our world is often stuck on grievances, and there are many, and we should name them and hold them, but those aren't the end of the story. There's more healing ahead, there's more goodness ahead. And when we orient around those things, I think we can start to feel a sense of deep gratitude that moves us to worship and be people who are like, this is beautiful. There's so much goodness all around if we just start to see it. And so when people and communities have that kind of energy, that vibe of not bypassing the negativity, but seeing the beauty and saying thanks regularly, saying thanks often, it can change who we are. I think our world needs this. They say if you don't heal from your trauma, you could transmit it. A posture of worship puts you in a place to move through our pain and trauma, not to bypass it or avoid it, to move through it in a way that brings healing. So I think worship can change things. It can change how we see each other, how we see ourselves, and put us in a posture of being filled up. These are all like Christianese words. So many things I'm saying like, yeah, God's wonder. Stop saying that a while ago, now I'm saying it again. But seriously, I think when we take seriously what worship invites us to be people who say thanks often and direct those thanks to God and then hold that together, it changes our demeanor. So another reason we should reclaim worship is because I think worship is not a choice, but what we worship is. I mentioned earlier that I think we all kind of worship. We all orient our lives around something. And the question is, what is the thing we're orienting our lives around? If we don't choose something, I think it's chosen for us. Our culture will give us things to orient our lives around, and in a sense, to worship, to serve. And some of them aren't bad. Like there's nothing wrong with family or career or even religion. But if those become the primary thing, and there isn't some deeper connection to our Creator underneath it, I think we can get out of balance. I think we have a choice of what we worship. And worship, being people who have gratitude in our hearts, is something we have to learn to do, and it's a choice of intentionality, like we talked about community last week. It doesn't happen accidentally. Third, I think we need to reclaim worship, because worship uniquely holds both joys and sorrows. And this is one of the reasons I think we've gotten it wrong in the American church. Worship, I don't remember what artist it was, they were asking this artist, this like really famous songwriter, like, why does church music suck? Our church music doesn't, but just but why does it often like fall short? And like, because it's all nature note happy songs. There's a sense that like in a church service, it's got to end with some sort of resolution and happiness, and it's kind of a sales pitch every week through our music of like, hey, come do these songs and you'll be happy. But I don't think that's what true worship is supposed to be. I think worship holds both the joys and the sorrows. If you read the Psalms, which are our book of worship songs from our spiritual ancestors, they are filled with sorrow and lament. What does it mean to hold, even as we sing together, we come together, both the joy and the sorrow of our lives? Psalm 13, one of my favorite Psalms, says this. I don't have it on the screen, I'll just read it. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day with sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. My enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I will trust in your unfailing love, and my heart rejoices in your salvation, and I will still sing, even though I am in sorrow. There's something there where we can hold the sorrow and the joy. I read this amazing book called The Smell of Rain on Dust. Is that a curiosity? Have you ever heard of this book? By a guy named Martin Chriselle. He talks about what it means in our world to walk the path of love. And he says, the 2 feet of walking love are praise and grief. I think we've done it with worship. We get the praise part. Let's come together and say like, yeah, hurrah, God, we love you. But have we included grief in our worship? There's so much to grieve in our world, and I think beautiful worship holds all of that in a way that we approach it with awe and wonder and attentiveness in a way that heals us. I don't know about you, but like when I'm sad and I find art that names that sadness and like directs it towards something good, it heals me. Like it deeply helps me process the stuff. I think true worship, a sense of awe and wonder towards God, is not just for the good, but it's also for the hard. We come to God, God, I'm in a bad place. I need you. Be with me. Be with our world. I think worship uniquely as an expression of gratitude, holding it all in love, can have both grief and praise. And we need to sing both of those songs. There's this book from Christian history called The Ladder of Divine Ascent. And the author is a guy named John Climagus. My favorite part of this book, I haven't read the whole thing, but there's a part that's like has stuck with me for years. And it's that when he gets to heaven, when he goes before God, this is all metaphor, instead of him asking questions of God, God asks him questions. I think we often are like, what question would I ask God if I could get there? But what question would God ask us? And the question God asked John Climagus is, why did you not incessantly weep? Why did he not weep more? And worship at its best brings us to a place of weeping and joy and sorrow. Weeping, tears are beautiful because they can be both of those things. I cried at the births of my children in like overwhelming worship. But I've also wept when my friends passed or when there's something hard. And worship brings us into that frequency of reality where we see things as they are and we hold them before a God who somehow holds it all in love. And we sing and we offer gratitude, and we go love our neighbors and try to alleviate suffering and bring systems into balance. So I think worship needs to be reclaimed because it can touch on these deep human emotions that we all experience right now. I'm thinking of my friends' churches in LA. They're not praising happy songs this week probably, but you can still worship with sorrow and weeping in a sad way. that holds it in something bigger, which is the last point. I think we need to reclaim worship because worship draws us into a bigger story. I've talked about the benefits of worship, like it actually is good for your mental health, but I actually think the primary benefit of worship is something bigger than us. It's about centering ourselves on a story behind all other stories. The truth that precedes all truth, the love underneath love. When we worship, we draw into the reality of God, the presence of God, God's love for us. We align ourselves with heaven. And we center on the truth that we were created with all of existence, every molecule and galaxy, sunset and laugh, every song ever written and every leaf that has ever fallen. We're created in love to be known and to know that God who loves us, that God will give everything for us, that God's love will walk with us through the highs and lows of this life, even through death. When we worship in its truest form, we kind of fall back to that reality. We remember who we really are. That love wins, that love is real, that we're not alone. So worship centers us on something bigger than what's going on in this particular moment. It's a practice of coming together to remember who we are. 2 stories. I was thinking about worship, there's the flashy celebrities in the audience, still some kind of worship that's like the American band. Where have I actually seen worship that like, oh, that's compelling. Like that's some real stuff right there. That's an experience that we need more of in the world. I thought of 2 stories. The first one, I have a picture of some Karen friends of ours in the border of Myanmar and Thailand. There's been a long-standing civil war. And I was with, the full story once before, but I was with a Western trauma therapist who went to go help people because all these communities have been subject to war and bombings, that they've watched their villages get burnt down and bombed. They're fleeing into the jungles, and they've been internally displaced people for decades. And she's reflecting with me about her process of working with them. And she realized the tools that I thought I was going to bring, they're already doing. They come together and they're singing together. They're anchoring themselves, they're making meaning of their trauma by anchoring themselves in a bigger story. And they worship with tears of joy and sorrow deeply, regularly. I think about what worship looks like. I think about a space like they're in, that's true worship. They're still somehow coming to their creator in the midst of all that's going on, and it transcends the circumstance. Another picture is more local, just an illustration of worship. This is a picture taken under 880, not far from here. First few years of Oak Life, we had a pretty strong connection to somebody in our community who was living there. And we'd go do like drop-offs, we'd do like medicine and food, we just hang out. And one time I was reflecting with this person, and they were like, last night I was sitting in my tent, like under the freeway, and just was filled with a sense of gratitude that I get to live this life, that God is with me, that I have breath. And I'm like, dude, look at your circumstances. Like, somehow he was able to center on something more profound than that moment. And that wasn't to minimize the struggle of his predicament, but there was a moment where he experienced something real, like some awe and awareness of the miracle of existence and directing that to the creator of existence in this really difficult circumstance. That feels like what worship is to me, more than smoke machines and laser lights. Something deeper. That's the thing I think all of us humans are longing for, a connection to our creator. That's what I think we're longing to worship, a God who is there in those spaces, and just, he ended up finding his way out of being unsheltered and is now remarried and living in San Francisco, and wrote a book about his experience. And Oak Life has a chapter. If it comes out, we'll talk about it. It'll be fun. But a part of that journey was worship. A big part of that journey was worship, in terms of resiliency and anchoring in something bigger. I'm going to close with a couple of questions. Actually, I'm just going to put them up there. If anything stirred in you about worship, dig into that. Open that up. The big thing is, how do we become people who worship more? I think it was Mary Oliver, in one poem, she says, I'm trying to remember this, to be a fully awakened human means to walk slowly and bow often. to pay attention to life, and when there's beauty and goodness and something to be grateful for, worship or bow. Walk slowly and bow often. How can we be people who maintain that, become that? And then just some things if you want to put something into practice, that you think worship is an outward. If it's just in here, it's missing something out there. I think that's what Amos was getting at. So how do we put it into practice? If you want to engage this, there's actually the prayer meeting today. We saw this natural segue. If you want to go spend time reflecting on this further, where are you all meeting, Greg? In the kids' room, a few minutes after service. They do some singing and praying for our world. And then lastly, I think there is an outflow of worship that is about loving our neighbors, alleviating suffering, bringing justice to our world. What is one anonymous act of love by giving of yourself to others that you can do this week? One anonymous act. I think that so much worship in the West has been performative. So just balance that a little bit. What's one thing that you could do for somebody else? Giving of your time, your money, anything that comes to mind. Listen to the Spirit's prompting. All right, I'll offer a prayer as we close with some music worship and mull over all these thoughts and come together. God, thank you for the gift of being alive in this moment, to be conscious and in community. We pray for our siblings who are reeling from the fires down south. Would you be who you are for them in this time? Guide us as we seek to love in this world, and if there's ways we can help us follow through with that and know that. I pray that we would be people who explore the gift of worship, centering on who you are, not all the things that are worrying us in the world, but something bigger and deeper, that the God who created everything loves us. Pray for anybody in the space who's coming in heavy or hurting today, feeling alone, that they would sense your smile over their life, your tears over their life, both the joy that you would feel for us, but also the solidarity you feel for us in our struggles. God, teach us to worship in a way that reclaims the beauty of connecting to you together through art, through song, through acts of service, through justice in our world. Pray all this in Christ's name. Amen. As we transition, we invite you to respond and engage how it feels right for you. If you'd like to engage communion, there are communion cups in the back at that table. This is a chance to remember and kind of taste God's love for us. That God would give everything. That God broke his body, that Jesus sacrificed his body and shed his blood out of love, even loving his enemies, so that we can be healed and brought back into connection with God. There's also a community care basket, and that's a chance to give cash or gift certificates. That doesn't go to Oak Life. That's for anybody in the room who needs lunch money or bus ticket or BART ticket. If you are in a place of need, by all means, feel free to receive. There's also a question back there. Just, why do you still go to church? Why are you here? A lot of people have decided this isn't an important part of their life at this moment. We respect that, but a lot of us have still found some value here. So I think naming that together and holding that, that's the reflection question. Why are we still doing this? What good and beauty do you see here? And you can write that on that little pad back. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Chris, for that word. I feel like that could have been sent in an email. Thank you. One of the things I'm very grateful for is when I was first hired here at Oak Life, I met with the leadership team. And one of my questions, because I'm a very nervous person, I'm a people pleaser, I was like, what are you expecting of me? What do you want to see out of me as a worship leader here? And just about everyone was like, just be your authentic self. So okay, I don't know if I want to do that, but okay. But I think it's a message that I've been receiving from Spirit for a very long time, to be my authentic self. And so I'm very grateful that I can do that here through worship because I experience being censored by a lot of different communities and spaces because they do want that worship that's very performative. So I'm so grateful to be able to be here and not have it be performative. And thank you for letting me cry sometimes. Thank you for letting me mess up. So in the spirit of that, we're gonna go ahead and sing a song two songs that I've kind of arranged together. I know I've said it before, I'm not big on hymns. I know some of us have some trauma behind hymns. But I decided to reclaim a lot of worship songs throughout my worship career. Because I think it's best for us. I'm gonna go ahead and take this song and I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna say it's mine, I'm gonna say it's ours. Because I love the lyrics behind it. I love the people that it creates within us. So we're gonna go ahead and sing You Know My Vision. If you are familiar with it, go ahead and sing with us. Go ahead and stand up if you're able to. We'll sing it together. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my Be thou my wisdom and thou my true words. I am thee and thou art me one. Thou my great creator, I my true child. Now we dwell in thy be one. Let us experience your glory. 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 Let's sing that together. Let us experience. Let us experience your glory. Let us experience your glory. Let us experience your glory. Oh, let us experience your glory. There's nothing worth more. tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves. When my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Your presence, it's your presence, Your Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory. Let us experience your glory. Let us experience your glory. Oh, let us experience your glory. Holy Spirit, I welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Lord, this place and fill the atmosphere. Glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, my King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joy, bright heaven's sun. I, oh, my Lord,
fortress, my friend, my faithful, faithful to the end. You're my deliverer, deliverer. I call, you're with me through it all. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. For me, how mighty are the works of your hand. Every page in the story, my steps in far in advance. You are my fortress, fortress, my friend, my friend. You are faithful, you're faithful to the end. You're my deliverer, deliverer. I call, you will give me. With me through it all. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life. Your steadfast goodness, your loving kindness. I am reminded that it's so much better, so much better. Your steadfast goodness, your loving kindness. I am reminded that it's so much better, so much better. Your steadfast goodness, your loving kindness. I am reminded that it's so much better, 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 so much better. Can't nobody love me like you. Keep on giving me life.
better when y'all three get together. So much better. Let us all, in this spirit of community, continue in closing with the benediction. God of love, may we be people who courageously walk the path of love, reflecting your heart to ourselves and others as we seek glimmers of heaven here on earth. Give us eyes and ears to sense your presence everywhere and hearts that break with what breaks yours. Be with us now as we go forth to love and serve the world in person or from a distance. Amen. Peace out, everybody.